Which one should I be looking at?
So good evening and welcome to the Friday Trainer Tribe Masterclass. We have about 118 participants right now in the meeting and the numbers are going up. So we will wait for another 30 odd seconds before we actually kickstart Masterclass. For all who have joined, you can use the chat box to introduce yourselves. Which organization are you part of and where are you currently? So you could just take this couple of seconds to introduce yourself. All right then. Good evening once again. We have 158 right now and we have about 100 in the waiting room. So we will not waste much time just to honor the time of all of us who have joined at 4 o'clock. So welcome to this masterclass on a Friday evening. This masterclass is hosted as part of Trainer Tribe, a digital learning community platform of Quest Alliance. The topic that we're looking at today is fundamentals of facilitation. So before we actually get into the topic, before we actually delve directly into the topic, there are certain ground rules that we will set for this masterclass. Next. So hashtag Trainer Tribe. So if you would like to talk about this masterclass on your social media handles, please do not forget to use hashtag Trainer Tribe. If you want to write your comments, your questions, what you felt about the masterclass, if you're excitedly looking forward to this topic because it's a very exciting topic, please feel free to use the hashtag Trainer Tribe. Next. As of now, you're aware that the host has put you on mute. And this is definitely for a reason so that we have a very engaging conversation and we are not distracted by any of the background sounds or any noises that can get us distracted or off track from the masterclass. But we definitely have the chat box, which a couple of you have already started using. So feel free to leave your comments, questions, thoughts, any feelings that you would have during the masterclass on that, and we will definitely keep looking at that at different points of the masterclass. Next. So a couple of us who are part of this masterclass have joined us for the previous masterclasses also and are aware of what is Quest Alliance. But for most of us who are joining us for the first time, just to give you a brief of Quest Alliance. So Quest Alliance is a not-for-profit organization which works towards transforming school-to-work ecosystems through self-learning. So Quest Alliance equips young people with 21st century essential skills by working with 4 important pillars, that is educational technology, capacity building, and collaboration. So far, we have reached out to 4,000 educators across 50 plus organizations. We currently work with 45 partners in 22 states across the country and have also started working with 7 state government partnerships. Next. A word of thanks to our funders and donors who have actually taken the time and effort to promote this masterclass in their circle. And that's why we have about close to about 220 participants and about 83 people waiting in the waiting room. So a loud round of applause for their efforts in promoting this. Next. So, talking about today's masterclass, the facilitator for today, Vishwas Parchure, is a very renowned figure in the world of facilitation. He comes with close to 3 decades of experiential education experience working with adults and children. And he brings in a plethora of insights from the different domains that he's been part of, be it sales, be it teaching pedagogy, be it peace building, and he brings it all together into one specific form into the world of facilitation. And he believes strongly that the presence of the mind and body and the whole self of each participant is very important so that they have an immersive, engaging, reflective, enriching experience in whatever they do. So words are running short to actually describe Vishwas. So we are very excited to have him for this masterclass, and we are very eagerly looking forward to hear from him on the topic for today, which is fundamentals of facilitation. So over to you, Vishwas.
Thanks, Lennon, and thanks to Chris Alliance for making this possible. Today, we are going to be talking about the head, heart, and the hand, and how how it's connected to the world of facilitation. Those of you who have logged in and are present, I'm assuming that you're present with your world of feelings, your thoughts, and your body. And all these are going to be involved in the next hour or so that we spend together. A request is to keep a paper and pen handy. So if you don't have one, if you can get one, either a piece of paper or newspaper would be best. But anything that you can either write on or play with, and we'll be possibly doing both as we go through this hour. Okay, so at its simplest, that line that you see divides two ways of thinking. And as you sit there in mind, body, and spirit, and feelings and thoughts, you'll notice that there's an area that's called below the line. And below the line thinking is closed, defensive, and committed to being right, meaning that you have your opinion and you don't want to move from it. And above the line is curious and committed to learning. This is something that we want our participants to be. So here I am, hoping that you will stay above the line. So as we go through this, there are certain thoughts that are likely to come into your head. You might say, I already know this. Yeah, that's fine. But if you say that to yourself, see what you can do to get on top of the line and stay in a creative space and ask yourself, what else can I learn? You might say, this won't work for me. That facilitation has a certain meaning in your life, and what I might talk about may not be facilitation to you. You might say, this won't work for me. See if you can climb above with a different way of thinking and see how you can make this work for you. You might say and ask yourself, there will be a point in time when I will ask you to put your questions up if you have them. And that time is any time during this hour. And you might say, in your head, you might say, is this a stupid question? And sometimes we stop ourselves with just that one thought that if I ask this question, it will be considered stupid. There is no such thing as a stupid question. So please remember, just try and ask that question. And whatever that question is, ask to clarify, not to confirm. And just remember that just because you don't get an answer that satisfies you, does not mean it's either right or wrong. My answers can never be yours. If you still feel that your question is stupid, you know what you have to do? Put it in the chat. Okay? So just be aware of these thoughts as we go through this process. So I have to say that just as I'm asking you to stay open and curious and committed to learning, as when I was invited to do this talk, I went through my own dilemmas. And my disclosure at this point in time is that I'm sure that many of you have been uh, participating in various training courses and webinars all online. And I have to share what my struggle is because I wonder if you found that to be true to you. And this is about the virtual world. For somebody who's done most of his work with people, in the presence of people and groups, this whole two-dimensional world is becoming pretty hard for me to accept. And the reason is, one is that I find it difficult. I can't sense people in two dimensions. Like I see some faces on screen right now, and I don't know what's going on in your head. Your expressions are those that you're sharing with that screen and not with me at this point in time. So I struggle for connection. So anytime you feel really expressive about something, I can see only a few faces, but feel free to express it in whichever way you want. So I get a sense of what's going on with you. And that means that if I'm talking to a screen, then there's a whole lot of things that I have no control over. So my commitment to myself as I go through this struggle is to stay above the line. And I'm going to I'm going to see what I can do to stay above this line. I've done many different trials, looking at the screen and talking to it. So let's hope that this thing goes well. Right. So this topic of facilitation, I know the title is Fundamentals in Facilitation. I'm not sure what is fundamental, and I went through a hard time trying to figure out, okay, so how does one talk about facilitation in this period of time? This is the only time I have with you, and I've got to make the best of it. So so I went back to the root word and I said, okay, so what does facilitation really mean? And what the dictionary says is to make easy and make or render less difficult and to enable another. So when I looked at that, the first thing that occurred to me was this, that you've got two people involved. One is the facilitator and the other is the audience or the facilitated. And this is true for any form of education. You could be coaching one-on-one and you still have the facilitator and you have the audience. There are two people involved. Each one come with their backgrounds, their training, their education. So you've got these two worlds, and they're coming to this place, and we're hoping that we can do something with that space to enable this participant. Uh, Add to that the fact that the reason that people come together is content. Now you got to think about, okay, so how am I going to deal with this? And the thing that came to my mind was that I have to be able to separate these elements in that facilitative world. So what you facilitate is about them. This is just making a quick distinction that there is the what and there's the how. So what you facilitate is about them, and how you facilitate is about you, because you are bringing yourself to that space. And that makes this whole topic of facilitation not just a skill that can be passed on from one to another. And if that was true, then we have a lot of books anyway, and we leave it to that. But I think for me, how it separates is this, that what you facilitate about them is what I tend to call processing, and how we facilitate is what, you might use the word facilitation. So as we go through this hour, I'm going to be talking about these two aspects and what connects them. uh, so just a simple definition of facilitation. I found a lot of interesting definitions of facilitation, and this is what reached out to me, grabbed my attention. It's based on the belief that it is human to dream and to desire. The skill of the facilitator is to become available to those who have the dream and to help them acquire the skills to transform it into something meaningful and rewarding. Again, so this is how I made sense of it. To become available As a facilitator, I need to park my bias, my judgment, and anything that is likely to burden me in the process. I need to, as far as possible, be able to see you as you might be and as you show yourself in that space instead of me trying to pass judgments about it. So both facilitator and student or attendee come with their own histories, their conditioning, their experience, their training, their language. And it's the meeting of these two worlds in that space. Therefore, the job of the facilitator is really becoming someone that people like to talk to. And once that happens, something quite different begins to happen in that relationship. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a few stories at this point in time. The first one I want to call the rebellious student. I was teaching. I understand that before I start the story, I understand that there's a whole bunch of educators from all kinds of fields. So there's likely to be people who are classroom teachers, uh, elementary, junior, senior, college, and then we have behavioral trainers, corporate trainers. There's a whole bunch of you out there. So I'm going to try and see if I can spread that experience or the stories out a bit. So the first story is a classroom story, and it's about when I was teaching fifth grade. On a particular day, so fifth grade, you sat on the floor, and there's already this height difference. And I don't know if you've been in many of you have been in a classroom where the audience is sitting on the floor, and then you're standing and talking, and there's this huge difference. So there's this positional power that we seem to acquire. And I struggled with it for that whole year. But on that particular day, there was a student who had some, so there were many students in that classroom who had learning difficulties. And this particular kid, on that particular day, something was going on with him. I didn't know what was going on. Some trouble started. Maybe somebody poked him or something, and he got up. And some things were said, words were exchanged, and then I said, "Oh, okay. Let's just call this kid Anand." Apologies to all the Anands that might be there. So I said, "This kid's called Anand," and I said, "Anand, will you please sit down?" And here it is, that educator, that teacher, supposed to be in control, trying to take power over a situation. On a normal day, it would have been okay. On that particular day, I don't think Anand at that point in time was ready to listen because something was going on in his head. So his whole being at that point in time was going through something. I didn't know what it was. Okay. I had absolutely no idea what was going on through Anand's head. I had no idea how he was feeling. I had no idea what he was thinking about, but there was turbulence. I could see it. He had stood up. He was screaming and shouting. He was using bad language or cuss words. Well, let me take that back. Not bad language, cuss words. And everybody was shocked into silence. So was I. I had no idea what he was thinking. Uh, I think one thing struck me on that day, that there was something going on with him that I had no idea about. Okay. And there's only one commonality in that exchange, that both of us would have to receive whatever outcome there was. So he shouted, I shouted back. He wouldn't listen. I said, "Leave the classroom." When you can't, when you lose control. So I think what I realized on that day in that scenario was that it was a world in which I really had no control. No control over what was going on in that classroom in that moment. Uh, and let's just leave it at that at this point in time. As we go through to the next slide, I just want you to be aware that there's a certain color coding that is being used. So the green represents what's going on with the participant. I'm getting requests. You will just remember that, just follow the story and pay attention now. We will make this slideshow available to you as a PDF. At a later date, the recording will be available on Facebook and wherever else. So don't worry about it. Just pay attention to what's going on. Okay. Second story is an adventure story. Um, for many years, I've been taking young people and corporate groups into the outdoors to do adventure activities. Um, I suddenly feel like I'm speaking too fast. If I'm going too fast, please send me a yes. If I'm not, then don't say anything. Till then, I'm just going to have a drink of water, take a sip. Great. I saw the yeses with many S's in the yes. Some of you spelled it very nicely. Yes. Okay. So this is the adventure story. I've taken a bunch of 11th graders into the outdoors, uh, tented facility, no electricity, next to a river. 11th graders, co-ed group. And those of you who worked with 11th graders will, in your head, you're probably saying, 11th graders, co-ed group in the wilderness, no electricity. Yeah, had a lot of interesting moments. But here's one that I really want to talk about. We did an activity in which you, as you see in the picture, there's that participant who's harnessed and tied to a rope that goes over that branch, and the participants, their classmates are holding them up. And when they're ready to do the activity, what they do is they they run, and the group pulls simultaneously, and so the person moves in that yellow line. Now this was about 40 feet high, and some of the students were willing to do it, and they would get harnessed and where we do it. There was this one girl who stood about 40 feet beyond the line, and she said, I knew she was afraid. I wasn't going to force her. That's the first thing that I got right. And I said, okay, do you want to do it? And she said, no. And she stood 40 feet behind. And after two people had done it, I asked her again, do you want to do it? And she had a smile on her face, but she didn't say yes. After another two kids had gone up, I asked her again. I said, would you like to try it? And of course, there's this whole body language that as a facilitator I was using and trying to be as inviting as possible. She finally gave me a smile and she said, okay, but I'm not going to go all the way up. I said, okay. I said, tell you what, why don't you just wear a harness and hang in there? Just stay there. It's okay to be 40 feet behind the line. So she got into a harness and she continued to stand there. After another two kids, I asked her again, and I said, would you like to walk up? She said, yes, but promise me you won't force me to do it. I said, no, I won't force you to do it. She came up and stood about 10 feet from me, another couple of kids, and then I asked her again. And then I think the time had come where she had to make that final call. And she said, okay. And then I said, how would you like to be pulled up? And she said, very slowly. And I talked to the group, and the group said, yes, we will keep the faith. We don't want to scare her. So we hooked her in. And, and then I, of course, orchestrated the whole thing. And it took about, so this whole game was about 45 minutes long. Anyway, um, she was pulled up. Little by little, she went up 40 feet. And she looked down and she was shivering and she was crying and laughing all at the same time. What happened in that scenario? So here's a dissection of it years later. So you have this participant, and so now I've introduced another color, and the yellow represents what I got right on that day. What I did was present choices. Okay, I said it was okay for you not to do it. Don't worry about it. Do you want to do it? So I presented choices to her. I had no control over her social and emotional state. So she had to make those decisions herself, and she did whatever she had to. I had to separate myself, detach myself from the outcome. And the outcome, if I had said to myself, a good outcome is when she can go 40 feet up. If I had said that to myself, I would have gotten stuck to the idea. And then everything I do potentially could have become manipulative in nature. So I was able to, on that day, say to myself, it's okay if she doesn't go. She can go as much as she wants. Doesn't matter. The other thing that she was able to do was to, feel a sense that there was no threat in the environment and that there were no expectations of her either from her teammates or from the educator. And that's a huge piece. I think in the education field, a lot of us, in our anxiety to get children to pass, we transfer our uh, expectations to them, because often enough children will ask you, if you, after a test they will come up to you and say, are you happy with my marks? And saying, how does that even matter? Please think about it. It's just an indication that somewhere we've transferred our stress and our expectations to them. The other thing I did right on that day was to manage their physical safety, which was critical considering it was a high risk activity. Okay, great. So, how does that change things? On that particular day in this story, I think what I was able to do or managed to do was enable control. Okay. All this is going to be up. You can see how it separates from one to the other when you see the final picture. The third story I want to tell you about is a lot of schools go for picnics. And sometimes those picnics are 1 day and 2 days, but I was invited to take a bunch of kids, eighth graders, for a picnic. And I said, well, you know what? Uh, Sometimes you can do this, okay? If you lose your hair and you look old enough and gray enough, Prathamesh, I can see you smiling there. I'm guessing you think you're there already. So, uh, and sometimes you can put the conditions. And, I was just lucky on that day that the conditions were right. I told them, I said, not 1 and 2 days. I need 7 days. And they said yes. And I said, I also need 1 hour every day with those children, Monday to Friday, to set them up for success. So this is what I did. Day one, I walk in and I say, okay, great, guys, a month from now, we're going for a picnic. Where do you want to go? And of course, Paris, London, Amsterdam, New York, Los Angeles. I said, look, you know what? Go home. Find out if your parents are okay with that. They came back the next day and they said, no. So I said, okay. So that means we've got to move around within the country. Where do you want to go? Delhi, Agra, the story. Anyway, it took about 4 days to get to a point where we said, okay, here we go. We've got two places. Then we had two groups that did not want to go to each other's place. So we chose Goa and Hampi. And the whole thing began. It was immensely exciting, taking them through the process. Many of them had not been to a railway station. They had never, so we got them to stand in line, buy tickets. Um, on the day of the journey, we all get into the truck. So here's when the fun begins. And you wonder, you say, wow, things are going great. So things went really great. They had their own objectives, learning objectives. They decided what questions they were going to ask themselves, how they were going to document everything, how they were going to look after each other, look after themselves. We go to the railway station, we get into the train, everybody gets in, the train takes off. Hey, some of this stuff has to be said fast, okay? So just stay with me. The train starts half an hour into the thing, the TC walks in, and here's what happens. The teacher who had the tickets suddenly goes into a panic. I said, what happened? And she said, I've lost my purse. I said, great. What was in it? the tickets. Wonderful. Now what shall we do? So I called, for the travel, there was this group that was in charge of everything. So I called them together and I said, what are we going to do? We have to do something. We don't have the tickets. And here's that wonderful part, that when an educator feels the confidence, and on that day I said, we can't do anything, but I don't want to take the thunder away from this opportunity. So I called the group together and I said, what are we going to do? And they came up with some of the most amazing possibilities. I'm not going to go into the ticket story anymore. We didn't find the tickets. We paid extra, and money that was supposed to be spent for hiring cycles at Humpy to go, travel around. They decided to write that off, and everybody went walking every day. They ate the sun. They struggled, but it was their decision, and there were no complaints. So this is just the short end of the story. So what happened on that day, and what did I get right? And I think here I have to say it's all about me. It's not about them. And facilitation is about us as educators, how we set things up, who we are at that point in time, how we carry things through. That is possibly the most critical thing we can do. Even as I talk to you right now, I realize that who I am and what I'm saying and how I'm being is possibly going to be more powerful than any of these slides. So, what did I get right on that day? I enabled decision making. Once the decision making was theirs, problem solving was essentially theirs. So, anything that emerged, they needed to take care of. We had groups, smaller groups that, so they had a collaborative process going on right through the entire month of preparation and education. They had choices from the start. I mean, how many of us would have the courage to walk up to a group of eighth graders and say, "Where do you want to go to a picnic?" and not get manipulative at some point in time because things are not working out the way you want them to. It was fun. It's scary. So just remember that facilitation is a risky profession. Don't think that you can get it right the first time. You probably never will. And on the day that you do get something right, rejoice. And all I did was supported them through their physical, emotional, and social challenges that they had. Okay. And here's what was common. It was shared outcome. Whatever happened was true for everybody. No extra biscuits for the teachers. You know what I'm saying, right? No extra cup of tea, no cycles for the teachers. We all had to manage it all by ourselves and share that load. And here's what I want to call it. I want to call it shared control. Okay. So uh, these are just examples of scenarios, and this was all about facilitation. Now, how's that? So here's what I'd like you to do. We're going to take our first break, and this is what I want you to do. Um, I hope you got a piece of paper. I want you to, or you can put this into the chat, whatever works for you. I want you to very quickly at this stage put down, keep it simple, keep it straight, keep it readable because I might be looking at some of it. Uh, what do you really want to know or learn about in facilitation? Be as sharp as you can. So you want to be sharp, sweet, simple. Some of you will remember the fourth S. Doesn't matter. So what is it you really want to know? I'm going to take a water break. Take your water break. Breathe a little. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Great stuff coming in. Capture the hearts of the learners, asking relevant questions, be sharp and simple. How do you keep it alive for 35 years? For whom? For the facilitator or for the student? Okay, keep it going. Humility. Meet the participants where they are. How can you get, oh wow, okay, God, okay, right. I'm going to try and answer some of those as we go along. So here's what emerged for me. I hope you've had a drink of water. It's summer. Wipe the sweat off. If you don't have a fan, the facilitation is not an accident. Doesn't just happen. It's not today I'm in a good mood and I'm just going to, go out there and swing it. No, it's an intentional and purposeful act. It is done by someone, you, for someone, your audience, with a clear purpose, either shared or defined by the organization, institution, or school or college or whatever. And it's affected by where it is done, whether you have a 10 people, children classroom or a 60 person classroom, how long it is being done for, and what tools and resources are used. So there's a lot of things you're going to be juggling around. And I'm going to try and see if I can help you with that juggle. So let's understand this world of the facilitator. Okay. So in any act I mentioned earlier, there's a facilitator and you have the participant. Okay. Now, there are words that separate these two people. So the facilitator, we've already talked about some of that stuff that you see in that body shape there. Let's look at a little more. Right. Um, any group, anywhere on this planet has a common it's searching for something that's similar. Everybody is looking for belonging. They want to belong to a group, to a class, to a clique, to an organization, to an institution, to nature, whatever you want to, and wherever you might be. Just think about this, that there is somebody out there in your group who wants to belong to something. So we are dealing, as facilitators, we need to understand that we are dealing with this, and that's what we are really dealing with. You can take any objectives, you can take, whatever objectives you want, and they sound really good. But the one that we're really going to be successful about, if we want to, is the sense of belonging, because that's where it really starts. So that belongingness happens in a place. That place is the classroom, is your outdoor classroom. It could be the mountains, it could be wilderness, it could be darkness, it could be the sea, it could be a lake, a beach. And now, as we go through this, there's this virtual environment that hasn't been added to that list, but I think it seriously needs to be added. That the environment right now you and me are in is virtual. Okay. And how do we feel a sense of belonging in a virtual environment? I think that's probably something that we really need to be looking at as we go through this entire process. Okay, so I'm sure if you've got connectivity and you're on the web, you'll notice there's a whole bunch of articles, webinars, talks about the stress that this lockdown has created in people's lives. Yeah. What's that stress about? And if you read enough, you'll notice that that stress is because the adopted lifestyle of a lockdown threatens our need for belongingness and connectedness. Just think about this distance. I'm seeing familiar faces and I want to smile and say hi. But hey, you know what? There are another 400 people out there who don't know that hello yet. And who is this person talking and who is this person being? And I bring that as you do to the space. So as an educator in this space, I also have to be looking at, okay, what will you actually do? Yeah. So in the experiential world, we think of activities, and we want to challenge them. So you can have journey style activities, obstacles, you have rules and games, and so on and so forth. So the medium we use, sorry, I got to slow down, I get it. Ah, the medium we use is the environment to the best of our ability, and the tools of our trade: puzzles, ropes, nature. uh, You know what I'm talking about. So now, so here's the thing, that these two things, a sense of belonging and that doing, are more or less, let's call it the outer world. And that's an area of control. We can decide what the place is and what tools we use. And we can decide our sense of being that we're going to be carrying into that space. But there's a whole another world out there. Now, here I am trying to do something, and I'm trying to reach out to you. You're going to receive me through your sensory world. Okay? And that sensory world is ears, eyes, ears, mouth, and 21 more. At this point in time, I want you to take a piece of paper and pen and just answer, or put it in the chat if you want. And the question is this: what word best describes how you are feeling right now? You can put it in the chat if you want. What word best describes how you are feeling right now? Curious, present, happy, super excited, lots of curiouses, secure. Oh, that's nice, reflective, sense of awe, trying to reflect and connect, happy struggles, alive, distracted. Put that cat away. Okay, and then all you naughty old guys, you got other stuff going on. Don't distract me. Ah, cool. Great. So here's something that we really need to remember. That sensory world is critical because the thing that really, what decides how we learn is how we feel. Emotions are the gateway to learning. So the simple law: how we feel is going to affect how we learn. So I'm guessing we've got only 1 hour and less right now, but if you're feeling all that, my guess is you're going to learn a lot. And just remember, this PowerPoint or whatever it is going to be available, so don't spend too much time. Any thoughts come up in your mind that are different from what I'm saying, jot them down, but know that this will be made available. Okay, great. So now now here's when we enter. So we do something and we enter our audience's being. Now that being consists of three things: how that person is feeling is going to be critical to how that person learns. I receive it. So if you were, for example, feeling threatened by me, by things I was saying and things I was doing, the chances of you learning are much less. Learning apparently best happens in a joyful environment. So, a safe environment, if you want to call it that. So, how that child, that audience of yours feels is critical to how they learn. So, just remember, when you facilitate, when they walk into the door and they see you want to be looking as non threatening as possible. So, reach out, connect, smile, drop your guard, allow yourself to be vulnerable, throw your worries away, throw that baggage that you carry about how you're going to perform or not perform, because we are animals. We smell each other, we recognize signs of stress, and we sense even before we can give it a word. If they feel that sense of trust, a sense of feeling safe, they're likely to receive what you do as the educator much more easily and with less resistance. So we are responsible in many ways about how children or our audiences feel. So do things that will ease the pressure. Do things that will help them feel a sense of joy and participation. So how, depending on how they feel, is how they're going to engage. Eventually, we gather because we want to know something, we want to transfer some knowledge, some content. Before you get into that space, it's important for us to know how we're going to go about it. So we need to be clear about how will they apply what they know. Let's say I throw some gyan at you, which I've been at all this time. How are you going to apply it? And I'm trying to make those connections to the world of an educator as many times as possible within the time that we have. So make those connections, build context for everything that you teach. Ask that question. If I transfer this piece of content, how is it relevant? What's the context for them? So three things that you want to consider: content, what's the concept behind it, which is general understanding that will make the content easier to digest, and what's the context that it will be used in, how will it be applied, where will it be applied, how can they apply it in their own lives. Because when people can make those connections between what they're learning and their own lives, then that learning becomes much more useful and lasts a much longer time. Okay, so let's move on. So that's the inner world of the participant. Just remember something, that for us, that's an area of no control. It's amazing how for centuries we've tried to control this world. Can you ask yourself this question? Can I really control how anybody feels? Can I control what they learn or what they retain? And can I control how they choose to apply what is taught in the classroom? You have your own answer. My answer was a little different. I said, God, I have no control over that. The only thing I have control over is that left part of the screen, which is where I do things, what I do, and how I do them. So let's move on to that world of that facilitator, uh, which is it's so much a part of our facilitation life, as lives as facilitators. So I think I'm going to have to run through this a little fast. So I'm just going to pay attention to some of these things, and some of these slides will go fast. So let's just look at each one of them. And the black is just alternate words to describe objective. What I really want you to pay attention to is the text in blue. How do I find out? How do I get, align myself better with that objective? Why am I doing it? Do I know why I'm doing something? What's my purpose? Not what the institution, organization, classroom teacher, principal wants, but what is my objective? If I'm teaching a particular lesson, what's my objective? What's my purpose in teaching that? What am I doing? What am I going to do in order to help them learn something better? How exactly am I going to deliver it? Is there going to be movement? Will I have props? Will I use toys? Will I use PPT? Will I use video? What tools am I going to use? What I'm going to do is that, will that match their needs? Then you have the audience, and just because there's an audience doesn't mean they're going to lap up everything that you say. So I want to think about, what's their interest? Is it in the same thing, that the topic that I'm going to teach? Do they have any motivation to learn that? Do I know what their desires are? Where is that sense of power and ownership? Is it with me? Do I want them to learn, or do they want to learn? What are their personal agendas? What have they walked into that room with? And this is true for even for children on a daily basis. Just remember that. They have their agendas. Something happened to them that morning. Some of it may not be good. Some of them will be brilliant. They'll walk in dancing. And sometimes they won't. We need to be cognizant and aware of all that. And then ask yourself this question: how much do I really know about them? I've met I've met teachers who've taught in the same school for 20 years and don't know the names of children in their classroom. And they have apparently a perfectly good reason uh, for it. But think about that. Where do they come from? What kind of backgrounds? What happened to them that day? Is there a process that I can introduce where I can check in with them as to what's going on with them? Will I be able to manage them? Yeah, am I walking in with fear? Am I afraid of what's going to happen in the classroom because I don't know how to manage them? This whole classroom management thing, I've been thrown out of places because my classroom got too noisy. And noisy is an engaged classroom for me. They're not throwing paper balls at each other. They're throwing questions. They're throwing challenges. They're throwing answers. And if that's noise, then so be it. And that's a wonderful classroom for me. So will I be able to manage that? And what does manage mean? Yeah, as long as they're not hurting each other and they're questioning and they're focused on the subject, then it makes sense. What do they want? Do I ever consider that? I ran a whole year with the seventh graders, one subject, double periods, 3 days a week, and it started with a really wonderful question. You can sometimes I call it stupid. So stupid and wonderful for me sometimes are the same. And the question was, what do you want to learn this next year? It can be as wild as that. And then the question really is, can I manage that? How should I prepare myself for them? What do I need to do? I need to do a hell of a lot. We all need to do a hell of a lot to be received well. And what should I be mindful of? Lots of questions about how to deal with our audiences. The third piece is setting. And in setting, what's your environment? Where are you going to be? How's it going to affect what you do? How many children in the classroom? Is it going to be crowded? Can we make space? So here are the questions. Have I got a sense of place? Where am I, not just in the context of me being in the four walls, within the four walls of a school or a building, but also what's outside those four walls in the neighborhood? Because that also is our environment that can be used. What is the nature of where I am, social, political, and physical? Every place that we teach in has a social, political, and physical environment. I allow myself to do certain things and not do certain things, and those decisions affect what happens in my classroom. Can I go anywhere from here? Sometimes, as educators, we feel stuck where we are. See if you can get out of that. What can I modify? Sorry, what boundaries am I operating within? How can I use the setting to the best advantage? Please do consider these things. And these are just the beginnings of a lot of other questions. Write down questions for yourself as we go along if something occurs to you. Resources. That's the tools of our trade. That's the knowledge we carry in books, through tools and toys, uh, friends, support staff, environment. Do I have what I need to do the best job I can? What am I dependent on? If I'm dependent on those things, is it available? Even as we talk, we consider the possibility of, let's say, losing the network or losing power or doing all that. It's just amazing to expand consciousness to a place where you say, hey, you know what? Worst case scenario, we may not do it. But here you are. Thank you for being there. Here I am, still there. Hope you're still with me. Let's continue. And the fifth piece, the facilitator himself or herself. What's my education? What's my training? What skills and knowledge do I carry? This is an area that we do very little for ourselves, and we want to be the best we can in the field without educating ourselves. Uh, I can't say enough about this. It's never enough. I've been asked this question: how much should I read? There's so much. Well, read it all. Read it all and find more. As long as you're doing that, it affects your perspective in a way that's just magical. It'll allow you to say things and do things with with grace, with confidence, with with the knowledge of what the risk is. But you'll go ahead and do it anyway. You will become a true adventurer. And think about educators becoming true adventurers in whatever they do. So how might my past or future show up in the now? When I walk into that classroom, am I angry at the rickshawala? Have I had breakfast? Am I hungry and therefore angry? Do I need to drink water? Take a break. Take a sip of water. I know I've been doing the talking, but take a sip of water anyway. It's summer, wherever you are. Hey, we're going to do an activity shortly, okay? So get that old newspaper if you can, or a piece of cloth. Okay, let's just finish this one piece and then we'll do that activity. Ask yourself these questions. How might my past or future show up in the now? Do I understand their context? Do I know enough? And if you don't know enough, you will never know enough. The day you say to yourself, yeah, I know enough, go home, pack your bags, find another job, stop educating. Sorry, I'm just being a little hard there. How can I prepare myself? How is my present condition as I sit here and talk? What's my present condition? Physical, emotional, and social. Am I ready? And I asked these questions before I got online. And I said, hey, you know what? At the most that I will be able to do is to shake somebody up or destroy somebody's facilitative life. And if that can be done because I'm not so well prepared, then that's fine. So have fun. Okay. So having chai or water, I'm having coffee today. Thank you for those wonderful comments. You know, I guess I have time for only one laugh for all those silly things you guys are saying. Okay, right. We don't have much time. Uh, Here's that big picture. You want to take a screenshot? Take it. It's a wonderful, colorful picture. Okay, let's continue. Just want to shift gear a bit. We've talked about the world of a facilitator and the participant. We've talked about the facilitator, and now here are some thoughts on what we do. I said was is about them, and I'm going to quickly run through this. Although there's a lot. Um, Before you do anything, before a classroom session, just remember you don't have to be an experiential educator with a whole bunch of activities in order to follow this. You can be a classroom teacher and still get children to think about the next day's chapter, topic, whatever it is, before they walk into the classroom. Get them to do some research, get them to find out, pick up the day's newspaper and find out if there's anything connected to that topic. There's a number of things that you can do. So help into, and we call that front loading. What is a front load? You can start. So if we think of processing is essentially creating a space for reflection for our participants. If you want them to reflect, the moment you reflect, you've got them to reflect. what you've also done is created a moment when change is possible, right? Think about it. So if we can create that moment even before anything has begun, wouldn't that be wonderful? So here's what we can do. We can help individuals focus on the issues or the topic prior to the experience of dealing with that chapter or that activity or that whatever that objective is. And by asking us a simple front-loaded question would be, what could you learn from what we are going to do? Okay? And in that, the moment you've asked that question, you've created a moment for change. So here's a front-loading question. We're going to go through a lot more stuff. Very quickly in the chat sessions section, please write down one thing that you might use that we've talked about so far. Any one thing that you think you might use in your work from all that we've talked about so far. And don't waste your time going back to your notes. You either have it or you don't. Okay? Let's give that about 30 seconds and coffee. Cool. Lots of good stuff. Okay, great. You see, this is that moment you've created for yourself through your reflection as a moment for change. You haven't even done anything yet. I just asked you this question, and look at that. Great. Everybody seems to have at least one thing that they're going to practice. Potential for change. Great. So then you go through the actual thing, and then during the thing, whatever that activity is, the chapter, the topic that you're teaching, just remember there's this there's this, can I call it the old way? I mean, I'm probably the oldest here right now, but the old way was, let's do something, then talk about it in the end. Not necessary. You can start talking about it while the thing is going on. And the kind of questions you would ask are a little different. We call them interventions, but that intervention creates that moment for people to think about what they're doing in the here and now and take corrective or change their action, whatever it is that they want to change in that moment. So you notice something and you say, what did you notice happening just now? What you're really doing is getting them to become conscious of that 1 second ago thing that they might have done. What you did in that moment was create a moment of potential for change. And then after that, you want to ask those questions in the end as a summary. Go ahead and do that anyway. That also creates potential for change. So potential for change can be created at many different places. Now, those of you who are confused about change, not change that I want as facilitator. This is change that they want for themselves, whatever that might be. Please do not confuse one with the other. The reason I say this is that I think the confusion is created. The client wants me to deliver a program with decision or leadership in mind. Yeah, great. Can you teach anybody leadership? I can't. What I can do is create an environment in which they discover it for themselves, because then that is theirs. And that is going to be their definition of it. So just remember that. Okay, you ready for an activity? You got that piece of paper? I'm going to say this only once. So grab that piece of paper, put it on the ground, step onto it, and you can do all this while I'm having my coffee. So step onto it. Are you ready? Here's your objective. Your objective is to turn that piece over without stepping off that piece of paper. Rules of the game: you can't use anything for support, but if you start falling, please grab on to whatever there is. Don't hurt yourself. Your objective, and you got 1 minute starting now, is to turn that piece of paper over with your feet without stepping off. If some of you can show us how you're doing it, that'll be even better. Yes, Mrinmay, that's brilliant. What time is going on? Okay, you got about 15 seconds. Done. It tore in the process. Oh man, you tore your objective. Done without. Okay, cool. All crumpled. That's fine. Yeah, you see, this is the beauty of it. Some of us who create problems beyond anything that the facilitator can imagine. Now, if you said your paper was in the book, then now you got a new problem. Okay, great. Thank you. Had your drink of water? Let's get back. So here are some pointers. These are just little things that might help you in your processing, okay? Whatever you choose to do, search for relevance, search for meaningfulness for them, create challenges. When you're working with a group, no matter how long it is, sometimes even if it's a 3 hour intervention, set some ground rules. Let the group decide what those ground rules are. What's okay and what's not okay. Some of the, it's called, different names: contract, behavioral contract, true value contract, whatever you want to call it. Okay, help them set ground rules, build agreements, and these agreements are not just between the participants but also between you and the participants. Manage safety: physical, emotional, social. So how are we going to deal with put downs? How are we going to talk with each other? How are we going to challenge each other? Is cuss words allowed? Is pushing allowed? Is physical bullying allowed? And so on and so forth. Ask these questions. They're critical to building those ground rules. Share the responsibility. So when I said build that contract together, do it together. Share that responsibility. Don't try not to walk into a classroom and say, I am king or queen, and whatever I say goes, and everybody else is a fool. So share that responsibility, even if it's foolishness. Empower them at all times. Whenever you can, empower them. Transfer power. When you ask questions, keep them short. Why? Because it's easier to understand. And remember to put one thought at a time. So MCQs in the world of processing is banned unless you want to create confusion and don't want an answer. So questions like, would you like tea or would you like coffee? Would it with milk, without sugar? And you asked about 4 different questions in one breath. Now, which question are they supposed to answer? So don't confuse them. Ask short questions. Wait, wait. We call it the pause. Yeah. Don't disappear. Stay engaged. What does that mean? Just because they're doing something on their own, don't disappear and walk away and act disinterested. They know the difference between your whether you're engaged or not. But while you stay engaged, stay detached from the outcome. Don't mix these two things up. Sometimes we get so involved and engaged with the group that we're desperately wanting to give them the answer, and it becomes our need rather than theirs. So just be careful about that. It doesn't matter whether they get it or not. One little thing in life did not change somebody's life, although a lot of movies say that. Nothing, not there wasn't any one thing in my life that changed it completely for me. It was a sequence of things. They were connected in some way or the other. Okay? So stay engaged, detached from outcome. After you've asked a question, ask a follow-up question. Why? Because you need for clarification. So if I asked, would you like a cup of tea? And you say yes, I say, would you like sugar in it? I'm asking for clarification. If they don't tell me, I'm going to ask them. What else can you ask follow-up questions for? For sharpened awareness. That tea also comes with sugar, it comes with milk, it comes hot, it comes cold. There's a lot of different varieties available. So ask those questions. It also helps in refining your own questions. Sometimes we mess up and ask a really complicated, silly question, and we don't know what we've asked, and we don't understand the question ourselves. And at that point in time, you can backtrack and refine the question and say, hold on, here's what my question really is. And it's okay to do that. Don't check your speakers. I didn't say a thing in between. It was called a pause. Can you sense that? It's like a pregnant silence. One of the most beautiful things in facilitation to learn is how to hold that space in that silence. You ask a question, and the group is thinking and thinking. If they're silent, just remember they're thinking. They're trying to figure out what your question is and what their answer is. Be careful how quickly you jump in with trying to clarify. Okay? So allow yourself that pause. Okay, so that was a nice picture. So here's that big picture of what we've done so far. Okay, uh, right. So can we do a little activity? You ready for the final stage? Okay, wherever you're sitting, do this. Whatever you're doing, okay? Wiggle your fingers, shake your wrists, elbows, arms. Think of yourself as a flying bird. Now go really wild. Use that head of yours. You shouldn't be able to see anything on the screen. Really fast. Ah, nice. Now focus. Ooh, it's really hard. Are you still there? I still see a lot of blurs there. Okay, great. The final piece, closure piece. How do we know where we are? Okay. Um, so here's, at this point in time, we're going to use this break. Uh, if you want any questions answered, put them out there in the chat. Take 10 seconds. If you have a question, put it out there. I'm going to be spending some time after I finish this piece in answering some questions. And those of you who know me, and I think about a fourth of this group are people I'm seeing familiar faces. I don't normally answer questions. I ask a question to your question. Today, I'm going to try and answer. Hmm. Oh, okay. Can we get back? So, all of us go through these stages of development, and here's one way of looking at these stages. Okay. So, here's that initial stage when we started off. And the only thing important at that point in time was we said, I want to build the skill of a facilitator, and I can see there's some questions here that are relating to that. Our initial stage in our development is learning skills and techniques and really understanding what is it we really do. Okay. And at this stage in our development, somebody asks us, what do you do? We often don't have an answer. Okay. Or our answer isn't clear. We don't really know why we do what we do. Often we've been told to follow a certain set number of slides in that sequence, according to, at 10:01 do this, 10:05 do this. Something I've been desperately trying to do with this set of slides, and I've gone over time already. Lenin, do let me know. Those of you who might need to step out, I apologize. Those of you who are going to hang in there, welcome to the show. This is what usually happens for me. I just get so involved. So I'm sorry. Okay, so that's stage number one. Okay, stage two, when we've done that skills and technique stuff for a while, if we are asked a question, okay, what is it that we do? Often our answer is because I've been told to do that by somebody. There's a certain rule, there's a certain method, there's a worksheet, a sequence, and so on and so forth. But somewhere in that journey between stage one and stage two, we develop a deeper sense of purpose and a better understanding as to why we're doing what we're doing. Yeah? Okay. And then that stage, that wonderful stage of being the master. Stage three is I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I've read enough. I know a lot. I have a lot of experience. I'm not talking about me, okay? I'm just saying this stage. And I've done so much and encountered so much in my life that I'm able to handle stuff much better. And here's where I want you to go with this, that we need to move from stage one and two to this place where you do enough to build your own philosophy. I didn't know I had a personal philosophy till my teacher, Laurie Frank, whom some of you have met. She said, "Hey, you know what? You don't have to copy the books. I'm a great copier, by the way. You don't have to copy the books. You have your own uh, understanding. You have your own philosophy that you've built over time. Go out there and share that." And this entire slide collection is my personal philosophy about what facilitation is. So as you grow in this field, please do remember that the most important thing is to build your own personal philosophy about why you do what you do. Okay, I think I'm done. Oh, by the way, I teach experiential ed. I live in Pune. I run a few courses. I don't know if I'll ever make it online, but I just want to express at this point in time hope that the diploma course will be happening definitely in Pune. I don't know when it will start, but I certainly intend to. Registrations are open. I also run some other programs. I intend to on different topics. So if you feel like some of this interests you, go to the website or write to me. That was my commercial break. Now, here is our time for answering questions. So take a screenshot. Which was the last slide again? You want to go back to the last slide? Yeah, I'm going to make this available. Don't worry about it. Who's the man on the last screen? Oh, guess. Okay, right, Lenin. Um, questions?
Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, my mobile phone was buzzing with a lot of questions. So, and it's going to shower in Bangalore. So the questions are also showering. So, a couple of questions were around the online learning that we are now gearing up to. So there have been questions around how do we actually create a non-threatening online space, because there's always a feeling that somebody is watching. um, how can you make it experiential on online platforms? I mean, you definitely did it experiential right now, so I think that gets answered there. But how can you actually make the online environment more welcoming, personal, emotionally safe, and connected? So if you could quickly share your thoughts on that.
Okay, so oh, just a question I didn't want to answer. How do you get people to feel safe and comfortable online? I have no idea. This is my first attempt. And my only answer can be, are you feeling comfortable? Are you feeling joyful right now? Are you feeling safe? And if you are, I don't know. I guess you just have to go back, watch the video again, and say, what did this guy do? I can tell you how I felt. I decided that I wasn't going to change anybody's life. I know there are 500 people out there watching this, listening to this, but um, I don't see it as my mandate in life and my vocation to change anybody else. I just want to go out there and make myself available. And making myself available at this point in time means being who I am, uh, trying to be funny, drinking my coffee, drinking water, laughing, twirling my mustache. I don't know. Just be yourself. I think people will sense it. And mind you, this is my first two-dimensional class, if you want to call it that. And I don't know how I don't know what I've done. When I watch the video, I'll cuss myself gloriously, maybe, or I will just love it and say, okay, I was who I am. But I think critical is just be who you are. You can powder your nose if you want, but that's for the camera. You can comb your hair if you want, but that's for the camera. Trim your beard, put on eyelashes. I don't know. Just be comfortable with it. That's rule number one. And actually, that's the last rule as well. Any other question? Lenny?
Yeah. So we have one more question. So what do I do with all my awareness of what is happening in the audience with each one of them?
Awareness within myself or other people?
So whatever awareness I get about the participants, how will I use it with each
Ah,
one of them?
okay. I think the simple rule is don't try and change it. The moment we try and change something, it's like a river. It flows. As facilitators, if we got in there and threw a few rocks, my guess is it's either going to stop the flow or it's going to create turbulence and disturb it. Our job is to just be aware, is to be aware of that flowing river. Just be aware of it. You will know what to do. Don't try and do anything specifically. I don't know if that answers your question, but if somebody is not feeling good on that day, pay attention to that. It doesn't take much. Reach out.
Um,
My
the
answer.
next, Yeah, so the next question is, sometimes your preparation and expectation will not match. Then what will happen?
Oh, your preparation and your expectation from yourself or somebody else.
So the preparation that you're coming in with and the
Yeah.
expectation from the group may not sync in together. So what will
Uh-huh.
happen?
Oh, well, in that scenario, let's say it happened to me. My guess is I got something wrong.
Hmm.
And the moment I recognize it, the first thing I will do is find out what their current real expectations are. So so I'm just going to call it a check-in. So I walk in, doesn't matter whether I know or don't know, whether I've got it right or haven't got it right. The first thing I want to do is to check in with the group and say, what is it you want to get from today? Do you remember I did it earlier? And you put some stuff there. I say, what is it you want to learn? That was a check-in. And you can do it in a much more elaborate way, even if you are doing something online.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
Here's
So
the thing.
yeah. So I think we are slightly too over time. So I'll take
Okay.
one last question.
Okay.
So the last question is, how long can we hold silence as or a pause as facilitators? How do we figure this out?
You will know. You will know. Just try it. You get much better at it. Long enough so that they do, so that the audience doesn't feel like you are confused and don't know what's going on. I think that is that line. That your silence could very easily be interpreted as, oh, he or she doesn't know what they want to do, therefore they're holding the silence. I think that's that dividing line.
Great. I know there are a lot more questions that are there, and we will definitely send it across to you, Vishwas, and we will be putting it up on our Trainer Tribe Facebook page. Can we go to the next slide?
Yep. Um,
So, so now that we have a reigning number of questions, and we can go to the next slide, Chip. So you would have seen that we have already launched a poll, which is basically the feedback with about 4 or 5 questions. So feel free to quickly take a few seconds to answer those questions, which will help us improve the upcoming masterclasses also. We can go next. You can also see on the screen that we have put up our Facebook group link. So Trainer Tribe, which is an online learning community of educators across the country, wherein we share ideas, we share best practices, we engage in discussions, we debate and discuss, and we have engagements happening. We would like to have you there. So join us on the Trainer Tribe open group. You can just search for Trainer Tribe and you will find the recording of this webinar there. And these questions that went unanswered due to paucity of time, we can definitely have Vishwas engage us there on the platform also. So we look forward to seeing you on the Facebook page. Next. Thank you once again. That was a great session. We would definitely like to acknowledge that you have given us about 30 minutes extra of your time. I know we had planned for 1 hour, but I mean, when we were doing the dry runs and all, it's very difficult to actually comprise a topic like facilitation into 1 hour. But Vishwas, as usual, with his humor and with his experiential style, has definitely done a great job in getting it engaged for 1.5 hours. But like how I said, this discussion will continue on the Facebook page. and you definitely have taken the screenshot of Vishwas's contact details, so you can definitely write to him. And we would be looking forward to having him more on these sessions now that Vishwas is feeling comfortable on the online platform. So we'll get him more for these sessions. So thank you once again for this wonderful engagement, and thank you for being with us for this. There were a couple of us who couldn't join us, but they were on the Facebook Live. So thank you. Have a great weekend ahead. Stay safe and take care of yourself. And we will see you next Friday for the next masterclass, of which the details will be up on the Facebook page. Thank you. This meeting will end in the next 20 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, we can all wave till then. Shake it out. Shake it out. Yeah, that's it. Nice, nice. Woo, 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 woo. Thank you for listening to me patiently.
So we are ending the meeting right now. Thank you.
Deepka?